For many children, the only thing better than the holiday candies are holiday gifts. Those of us of a certain age who reminisce about the toys of our childhood should appreciate a traveling exhibit currently at the Missouri History Museum. It's called Toys of the 50s, 60s, and 70s. But whether these periods cover your childhood or not, you'll soon discover it's about more than nostalgia for old school playthings. The exhibit is laid out with three main focal points: living rooms designed in styles reflective of each featured decade. Shelves hold toys and games of the times.
And it's one of those exhibits that you can't get people to get through because they're stopping so many places saying, "Oh, I used to have that, I used to have that."
Director of Exhibitions and Research at the Missouri History Museum, Jody Sowell.
And one reason they start in the 1950s is because this is when you see a real boom in toy production. This is post-World War II, the economy's roaring again, people are able to purchase these types of items. And between the 50s, 60s, and 70s, you do see that evolution. So starting in the 70s, you really start to see more of the electronic games. So late 70s, you see the Simon memory game really ushers in those handheld toys. So if you're interested in technology, you see that here as well.
Here he comes, greatest toy you've ever seen.
Mr. Machine, introduced in 1960, was one of its manufacturer's best-selling toys. But preferences changed as technology and our world changed.
During the space race, you see more space toys. During the Cold War, you see toys that are based on Get Smart and sort of detective. So you don't just see changes in sort of how kids play, you also see changes in what they are playing. You'll see a lot of issues of gender throughout here, sort of what was designed for girls to play with as opposed to what was designed for boys to play with. One of my favorite examples is Lionel Trains wanted to come out with a train that would appeal to girls. So what did they do? Well, they made it pinks and pastels. Well, it turns out girls just wanted a train that looked like a train, so it didn't sell very well.
The best present yet to give or get, but costs a little to buy.
One toy equally popular with boys and girls then and now is Slinky.
For fun, it's the best of the toys.
An interactive Slinky display is part of the exhibit.
It was actually developed by a mechanical engineer who was working on springs for ships to keep them stable in the water. Well, he knocks over one of the springs and he watches how it falls and he realizes, you know, kids would love that. So he and his wife developed the Slinky in the early 40s. It's now sold more than 250 million Slinkies. So that was a great idea, all by accident.
Barbie's Dream House.
And what would an historical toy exhibit be without the iconic Barbie? Which reminds me, when I was growing up, there were no black Barbies. So talk about that evolution and how, because it really took a little while for manufacturers to figure out there was a need there.
Absolutely. One of my favorite artifacts in the whole exhibit is a Sara Lee doll. The Sara Lee doll was an African-American mass-marketed doll, I think the first of its kind, in 1951. It only lasts for 2 years, but you had even people like Zora Neale Hurston coming out talking about how important this doll was, how important it was for African-American children to see someone who looked like them. It only lasted for 2 years, not because it wasn't popular, but some of the production material wasn't working out, so they stopped production. It would be more than 15 years later before another African-American mass-marketed doll would come out. That was Christy, Barbie's friend. But think about that, 15-year gap in seeing anyone who looks like you. That's what I'm talking about when I talk about there are these different levels to this exhibit. You can come in and just see the fun toys, but you can also have some pretty serious conversations about race, about gender, about commercial culture. It's a really fascinating exhibit in that way.